Okay, so moving on to oil pastel. If you've done a whole few lessons on something like watercolour, suddenly taking the leap to oil pastel can seem like a real shock to the system. Sometimes going from one medium to the next is really healthy to make you rethink your images that you're using for your main theme in a different material or medium. It also fits in very well with the mark scheme to use a diverse range of skills and techniques in the first development pages of your projects. Later on, as towards the final piece, you'd be specialising, but oil pastel is a very diverse and useful medium. Anybody I would have taught in year 9 would have done a fair amount of oil pastel with me because I tend to do the expressionism project. A lot of the expressionism paintings were actually oil paintings, but you can use it very versatilely in oil pastel. So. In this one here, you can see a whole range of techniques. You can see the blending, you can see some quite dramatic lines put on, you can see some layering. It's kind of very linked to watercolour in some ways, although you'd think, oh, it's a dry medium and watercolour is more fluid. But it's linked as in you have to be quite decisive, because whereas acrylic and oil paint, you can work over the top in many ways. Watercolour, obviously you have those layers of colours showing through, and oil pastel, this green here, it'd be very hard for me to work over the top of that and turn it red. So you have to be quite decisive about what you put down and also use blending. So in that way, there's similarities with watercolour. And if I just flick through these, you can see this in this year 9 work, and there's some really exciting, vibrant use of work. You can use a limited colour palette, or you can use some quite clashing colours, warm colours, cool colours, pastel colours. But you can get some really exciting and dramatic effects with it. Okay, and really explore kind of colour and emotion as well with these bold colours. So your first task that I'd like you to do is just to get your pack of oil pastels and do some of the main techniques. The one technique that you will do is the blending. So with blending, you push down hard with the colour, and then it's about taking your hand gradually off the paper, so you're just almost scratching and you're fading it out as you come down. And then if you like, turn the paper around, choose another colour. Sometimes it's nice to work with colours that would naturally blend. So for example, yellow would naturally blend with a red and make an orange in the middle. So if I push down hard there where it's just white paper, and then gradually take the pressure off until it just disappears, and then it fades out to the yellow. And then effective use of oil pastel will often be going back and forth from one to the other. So I'm going to go now back over that and blend with that one, and go back again with this, and blend on top. So you're layering it on just like you would layer with oil or with watercolour in gradual stages. It's just that you're not using water, but you're blending. Oil pastel is kind of quite a gritty kind of medium, so I've blended them there, and where the red and yellow mix, you can see it's starting to form an orange. You can obviously take that further, there's nothing wrong with actually grabbing an orange oil pastel, but it's also very nice to see those unique colours of blending. But it's quite a gritty medium, so sometimes you'll get little bits that are where they're not supposed to be, but it just gives a really nice lively effect. The second technique I'd like you to try is sgraffito. Sgraffito works better when you have a lighter colour underneath. So just put a layer of colour down first of all, and then choose a darker colour, whatever that might be. I'm going to use a purple for mine, and just go over the top like that. So the colour underneath is hidden by the colour on top of it. Then use something sharp. I mean, sometimes people would like to use like an edge of scissors or whatever, but you could just use like the edge of a teaspoon or something. And then just explore the technique of scratching into it so one colour shows through the other, and that's called sgraffito. And you can do really interesting images like portraits, whatever, landscapes, just by scratching into the surface. And the third one of my favourite words, is scrumbling. Okay, so So that's where you just really explore this kind of very loose texture. So you're not blending, you're not going over the top and scratching it off. You're putting a layer, again, maybe of lighter colour, and you're kind of just working over so you get this kind of very lively mist almost of the texture of the colour coming through, and that's called scrumbling. And you can see that in a number of the pieces of work which I showed you at the beginning, where you just get these interesting richness of textures, you know, in this very gritty oil painting. So that's task 1. Task 2 is where you actually draw in a very direct manner and you don't blend. You just use the directness of the oil pastel. So you just decide wherever it is you're going to draw, and you just go for it. So this is where I would recommend, to get an A grade, you want to be using your previous drawing. So look back in your folder and kind of look at, is it a landscape, is it a portrait, is it an animal study or whatever. And don't worry with this task about having your colours realistic. Use just totally different colours, a bit like the Expressionists. And I want you, with this one, just to do a direct study where you're just using the oil pastel just to explore the mark making and be quite loose and direct with what you're doing. You might want to just quickly, if I didn't teach you in year 9, you might want to just quickly Google the Expressionists, the German Expressionist artists, and how they would just really use quite loose and direct mark making. So I've just done a quick study of a face there. You're going to spend about 20 minutes on that, but like I said, very direct pieces of work. Okay, then the third task is I would like you to do some blending, but work over the top to show highlights. And in the example that I show you, I show an example of like a fruit. So it's where you would, instead of the direct marks, you do a lot of kind of gradual blending and smoothing. Okay, but whatever your theme is, so if you're doing a horse's head, if you're doing a skeleton, if you're doing whatever it is, a bee or a wasp, or all the other ideas that you've all explored, you do your blending to begin with. So I've just blended some nice smooth colours there. And then you get, usually say a white or something, and you just pick up over the top the direct reflections of the light hitting it. So that's the third task. And then finally, your last task is to get a collage of materials and work over the top. So you have fragments of it showing through, and I've given an example on the slides of an avocado, because what I'd like you to explore with that is how you can build up layers of oil pastel, but also you can have it quite transparent, so you can have this opacity to it by just doing the lighter colours and just quite faded. So have a look at the slides of the avocado, but don't copy it. Do something, like I said, from your own photos or drawings to explore your own theme, but it's just sticking down bits of collage and then working over the top in oil pastel. Okay, so you're going to, by the end of this, have done at least an A2 side of developing your ideas, but this time going into oil pastel, and that'll look fantastic following on from your watercolour. Have a good lesson. See you.